Welcome back, V.O.C. YouTube channel, college football. This week was painful to watch for me. As a Notre Dame fan, it was tough. Losing to Marshall, not what I expected. Expected this team to be a little bit better. Marcus Freeman has all this hype coming in, shove it up everybody's asses. We're going to be really good. Well, this is a setback. It's the first year. I think we overestimated it. I will break it down a little bit more, but I think all in all, crazy week. I think the gap is closing on the way better teams from the other teams. I think some teams are catching up with the top. And I think the teams that we look at and we think, they should be good. Their coaches is good. They're not as good as we thought they were. Happens every year, but very interesting week. I will mainly talk about Notre Dame in this video just because as a Notre Dame fan, I will talk about that. I'll talk about Texas a little bit, and then I'll get into my picks. So let's jump into it. Sadly, like I said, Notre Dame loses 0-2 to start the year. After losing Marshall 26-21, they just got beat up and down the field. They looked like shit. What's my hat look like? I feel like it looks bad in a little camera view. I don't even give a fuck. They got beat. They got beat horribly. Was not good. Thought they had chances to win that game. They should have won that game. They were playing Marshall, for crying out loud. Sun Belt, maybe the second best conference in all of college football behind the SEC. But no, all in all, it was horrible. Tyler Buchner got hurt in the ear. Is it a big hurt? I don't know. Tyler Buchner's not the guy I thought he was going to be. Not the guy I think anybody thought he was going to be. Look, he's elite. He can run the ball. But other than that, stared down receivers twice. Just made mistakes. I get he's never started before, but you would think a guy that sat last year, had limited action last year, really hone in, figure it out, watch the game, sat behind a guy like Jack Cohen, who I hated Jack Cohen, but Jack Cohen didn't make as many mistakes, right? And it happens, and this is where Michigan fans, with J.J. McCarthy as well, when you have a guy that can do a little bit more mistakes could happen. So you have to be careful what you wish for. Clearly, Buchner wasn't the guy that I thought he was. Now Drew Pine steps in this week against Cal. Hopefully we can get a fucking win. Who knows? It's one of those things nowadays where I don't know. Now, like I said, I thought the season 9-3, 10-2. I thought that's how talented this team was. Even with the first-time coach, I just thought this team was talented enough, veteran-led to where it can get you there. Now 7-5, 8-4, 6-6 is what it's looking like. Because you got to play BYU, who's really good. You got to play Clemson, who's really good. You got to play USC, who's really good. But at this point in the season, you can't even look down. You have to play one game at a time. So Cal this week, this is the only game we should be worried about, and then you move forward. My biggest problem with losing like that is the recruiting aspect of it, because Marcus Freeman's had so much great momentum recruiting in 2022, 2023 class, 2024. He's had great momentum recruiting. You could lose all that momentum. Luckily, it feels like some of the guys that are already verbally committed are staying on ship and they like what's going on, but most likely they'll lose a couple guys. So Marcus Freeman starts out as ND, tenured as head coach, 0-3, first coach to do that in Notre Dame history. Look, not every coach is going to get off to a hot start. I think if you look at the coaches that have gotten off to a hot start in Notre Dame, some of them didn't do as well. Some coaches that did good in Notre Dame started off poorly. It happens. I think, clearly he can recruit. Clearly he's changed the mindset of the program, organization, everything about it. But you have to worry about the coaching aspect of it. And that's the problem. Can he do that? We haven't seen that yet. What I do like is he's taking responsibility for it. He knows it's his problem. He knows it's his fault that they've struggled. And he's owning up to that. I like how he had both coordinators do interviews this week, which normally never happens during the regular season, to say, have Al Golden and Tommy Rees, who I'm about to shit on here in a minute, own up to their mistakes and know what's wrong. So like I said, he's young. I still believe him. Last week, I opened my mouth too quick when I said Notre Dame will be just fine, if not better, under him. Then we lose to Marshall. I still believe he is the right guy to win because at the end of the day, he doesn't give a shit about the restrictions Notre Dame has when it comes to recruiting, getting some type of players on campus. He's going to work through that. I think he'll figure the coaching thing out. If this has to be a horrible year for him to figure it out, I'll talk about Texas later, but they kind of had the same struggles last year where you have a bad first year and then you learn from those struggles, and then you move forward. I think this is a year for him. If it were me at this point, I talked about it before. Play the young guys, figure out who's right for your staff and who's not, and really use this first year. I know Notre Dame's not going to give them a lot of years. Fans aren't going to give them a lot of years. But really use this first year to kind of mold, figure out what you like, what you don't like with the staff, with the players. That's what I would do at this point. I would play the younger players. The younger wide receivers need to play. Okay? Tobias Merriweather being one of them. True freshman. He needs to play more. Defensively, play some of the young linebackers a little bit more. Play some of the corners a little bit more. Because frankly, what we've seen so far is the stars that we thought were going to be stars for this team. If you look at Isaiah V.O.C, Brandon Joseph, Cam Hart, Jared Patterson, Logan Diggs, I know he's been injured a little bit, but those guys that we thought were going to be stars and help this team have not showed out at all. They've not even shown up for most of the games. So those guys need to show up, and if those guys don't start to show up, start playing some of the younger guys. Because, look, I get you have fifth-year seniors, you have seniors, juniors who have been in the program, known things, but sometimes there's better players on the roster that are younger. And I think in Notre Dame's circumstance, right now, there is some of those guys on the roster at different positions that I think are better than some of the guys that are playing. So I get you want to go with veteran and leadership guys, I understand it, but at this point, your season's kind of wrecked for the playoff. So to move forward and kind of figure things out, I'd play a lot of the younger guys. That was me. I get you still want to win games. I think you can still win games with the younger guys because they're that much better than some of the guys playing. But I think the biggest problem, clearly you can see it, it's the offense. And when you have a stagnant, bad offense, it hurts the defense. The defense can't do it all. Every week cannot show up and expect to only give up 10, 15 points, get a couple turnovers, they can't do that every week. Not saying they've done it so far, but they can't do that every week. The offense is stagnant. I really like Tommy Rees. I think he's a guy that gives zero fucks. He goes out there and he coaches, and he doesn't care what the outside world says. But I think we can see with, some of the stuff, I think we kind of underestimated, and I obviously did. I had to think about this after the game, was what Brian Kelly helped him out do a lot more. Did Brian cover up some things for Tommy when it became to play calls? Because Brian Kelly was an offensive-minded guy. Marcus Freeman's defense, so he's kind of giving it all to Tommy, I feel like, and just said, boom, take it, do what you want. Marcus isn't sitting there calling plays with him, maybe like Brian was. So I think that's my biggest problem is what is Tommy Rees doing in some of the regards? Like wide receiver, look, I've seen what Braden Lindsey's done for the last 3 years. Get him off the field at this point, right? I want to see Lorenzo Styles. I want to see Deion Colsey. Like I said, Tobias, I want to see some of these young guys play because, frankly, you know what you have with some of these other guys. And it's not going to get the job done. But I think the biggest problem is the offensive line. Harry Hines said we thought could come in and fix it. The line struggled last year, so it's been kind of a reoccurrence. I think they can get it right, but it's going to take some time. But that's the biggest problem, I think, right now for the offense is the offensive line. Marcus Freeman wants to run the ball. Tommy Rees wants to run the ball. There's 3 stable backs that you want to run the ball with, and you can't run the ball. That hurts a lot of things. So then you have to put pressure on the quarterback to throw the ball. Defenses know what's happening. So I think if they can figure the offensive line out, I think it can help a lot of different things. Similar to last year where offensive line struggled early. And once the offensive line kind of figured out, it gelled out, the team got better. That's the biggest thing, I think, for me. But also, Tommy Rees needs to understand when to call plays in certain circumstances and not. And I think to figure out a little bit more moving forward who to play and who not to play. But look, I'm not a coach. I'm just sitting here as a fan. I like to view myself as an esteemed journalist this is what I think's going on. This is what I think maybe could help. But like I said, I'm not a coach. I'm not going to sit here and drill on them all day. But just some things I've viewed and seen from other people. But Marcus Freeman's finally a full Catholic now. He got converted, so hopefully that helps us. The other thing is, Marcus, you pretty son of a bitch, figure this out, okay? Because I'm not going to view the TV to only look at you. That's not the only good thing I want to look at. I want to look at a good football team. I don't want to look at our coach and be like, that's the best looking thing we have, okay? We need to figure this out. All right, moving on to Texas. Look, Texas is closer to being back. They're not fully back, but they're closer. I really like Texas coming into this year. Not shooting my own horn here, but dude, Texas is good, right? Quinn Ewers gets hurt in the first quarter of that Alabama game. They end up losing 2019. Quinn Ewers plays, potentially Texas wins that game, but their backup didn't play bad either, Cade Stearns. I think Sark's the right guy. He has it figured out to where he had a bad first year. I think where they went 5-7. Now, Texas was far off worse than what Notre Dame was, but he needed to figure things out. He figured those out, got his quarterback. Notre Dame doesn't have their quarterback. Marcus still needs to find that, but I can see a lot of parallels in the Texas situation from last year and Notre Dame coming into this year. But like I said, I believe in Sark. They've recruited well. Their quarterbacks are set for the next 5-6 years at least, with Quinn and then Arch. So I think as they go into the SEC and they move forward, I think they have a chance to be very good. And I think it's going to be scary to watch Texas play the next couple of years, because you got Alabama players talking about, Will Anderson talking about playing at Texas was like one of the loudest places they've ever been at. Texas is good. Fans get excited. They're a big brand. It makes college football better. That was a fun game to watch. People hate both teams. I just look at it and go, I want to watch a good game. That's what it ended up being. When you have two pillars of the sport good and can be very good like that, and that's a game that they're going to play every year, you know, potentially how the SEC shakes up, they can play that every year coming up in the next couple of years. It was exciting to see. But I truly believe with Sark and what they have building, Texas can win a national championship in 5 years. I truly believe that. They don't have a lot of depth, but they have some pieces, and they're going to slowly build out depth in recruiting, because Texas is a big state to recruit in. They're a big brand, and as they get better, it's only going to help them out. All right, moving on to my picks. I didn't want to sit here and talk about a whole lot. It's still early in the season, so to sit here and judge things, I obviously want to talk about Notre Dame, because as a Notre Dame fan, but I also wanted to talk about Texas, because I think it's interesting to watch. The game was very fun to watch. They had Alabama on their heels. You know, it was fun to see Saban be Saban. Saban doesn't play those games where he goes in and plays a road team like that. He likes those games where he has to play neutral site. So it was fun to watch. All right, picks this week. I was 6-1 last week. Houston Cougars fucked me. Hopefully it's not the last time a Cougar fucks me over in my life, but it happens. 11-3 on the season. It happens to be great season so far. NFL picks, I'm in shambles. If you watch my NFL video, crying. It's horrible. I can pick college games left and right, grab them off the shelf, and do that thing. NFL games is a little bit more difficult. So let's hope I have 6 games this week. Let's see what we can do here. Number 6, Oklahoma, 11-point favorite at Nebraska. Now you're going to say, Caleb, this is a dumb game to do. Oklahoma's going to beat them. Yeah, but Nebraska just fired their coach, Scott Frost, who was an idiot imbecile. And usually what happens when you fire your coach, you bring in an interim, who now Nebraska has the first ever African-American coach in their history of their school. That guy's going to bring some fire. I've seen it multiple times. Nebraska's going to play better than people think. It feels weird to say that, but usually this is what happens. They're at home. They're going to get up for Oklahoma. I do think Oklahoma wins, but I think it'll be interesting to see how the emotions ride for Nebraska, because they had all these expectations they were going to be not good but decent this year compared to years past, and sadly it's just started horribly. All right, this probably right here could be game of the week. Number 12, BYU at number 25, Oregon. Oregon minus 3.5. BYU beat Baylor at home last week. I don't understand how BYU's an underdog, but this is easy money right here to go with BYU. BYU is going to be that team where they might be underdogs. Probably not in their regular games. Maybe because they're independent, so I haven't looked the rest of their schedule. But they played like teams like Notre Dame, but they'll be favorites clearly now. but they're going to be a team that's going to win you money because they're talented, and people just think because they're BYU, they're not going to win. They're way better than Oregon. They should easily win. Not easily, but they should win. Number 22, Penn State, who's a 3-point favorite at Auburn. This is an interesting game, Big Ten in SEC country. I think Penn State is a team that's going to be better than people think. I think they have a shot to be the second best team in the Big Ten. So I'm going to go with Penn State here. I just trust them more than I trust Auburn. But it's going to be a hostile environment. It's going to be one of those games where Auburn doesn't have much to play for on the year. They're excited because it's early, so their fans are going to be hyped up. But I think Penn State wins it. Texas Tech at number 16, NC State. NC State a 10.5-point favorite. This is an interesting game to me. Hey, Michigan, take a script out of NC State and Texas Tech's playbook and play a Power 5 team. They don't have to be a good Power 5 team, but play a Power 5 team. You make a wish schedule, you're playing orphans. This is an interesting game. Texas Tech last week beat Houston. That's how the Cougars fucked me. But interesting game. I like NC State here. But I just thought it was an interesting game to look at. It was like, Texas Tech playing NC State. Ooh, that's a dicey one. Hot tamale dicey. Number 13, Miami at number 24, Texas A&M. Texas A&M is a 6-point favorite. They lose to App State at home. I mean, I'm baffled that Texas A&M's a favorite. I like Miami in this game. Mario Cristobal is going to get his guys bumping. He can go on the road and win big games. He proved that last year at Oregon. I like Miami's quarterback better. Usually I like to pick these games if I like the quarterback better. I like Miami's quarterback. I like the mindset Mario Cristobal has. Texas A&M, I don't fully trust them in their quarterback. You get the number one recruiting class. That doesn't mean you're going to win games, clearly. So I think Texas A&M bounces back. They play better this week. But I just like Miami. There's something about this game that I just like Miami. All right, last game. Number 11, Michigan State, my alma mater, at Washington. Washington's a 3-point favorite. To me, this is just like the BYU game. This is easy money. I know MSU has not played up to the standards in the games against Western and Akron, right? But Washington is a first-year coach. Mel Tucker is going to get these guys ready to rumble, ready to play. I like Michigan State. It's one of those games where it's like, I look at it. This is one of those games where you don't have to think long and hard about it. I like Michigan State. They're better than Washington. The fact that they're getting the 3 points is easy free cash that they're just throwing at us. So yeah, that's what I like. Like I said, these picks are a couple dicey hot games. Games are going to get better as the season goes on because we're going to get into conference play. But hopefully we keep hot in college football because NFL, I'm crying every night because of how bad the picks are. So yeah, it's going to do it. Like I said, Notre Dame, clearly Marcus Freeman was not a child of God until he now just got fully Catholicized and converted. Texas is closer to being back than people want to admit. And hopefully picks this week do well. So we'll see how this week goes. I'm still baffled about the Notre Dame thing. You can clearly tell I'm speechless. Usually not speechless, but I am. So that's going to do it for the video of college football. Week 3, moving on. We'll see how this week goes. So yeah, that's going to do it for the video.